We are back again with another question for our work from home vlog series in crazy COVID 2020. And the question that we had come in this week was about negotiating or renegotiating chores in our house. So if you are at home with other people, be it your spouse, your kid, your roommate, whoever it may be, everything is getting used more. The trash is getting full faster. The dishes in the sink are more. The laundry is more. The mess is more. So how do you renegotiate or negotiate chores in this season without going crazy with each other? So, Sean.
You know, one of the things that we were talking about as we were discussing this was, what is the question before the question? As in, how do we renegotiate the chores? Okay, that's a starting point. But before that, it is what is actually happening. Maybe sometimes we don't even know what's happening.
Or not happening.
Or not happening. As in, Angie does the laundry and it just kind of magically appears on the bed and I put it away.
It's the laundry fairy.
And I know sometimes before we actually started talking about this, I kind of took it for granted in some ways, not intentionally so, just because I was focused on other things, or I just wasn't aware that dishes were getting done. It wasn't because I was taking her for granted intentionally. I just wasn't aware of it until she brought it up. And, you know, I remember earlier in our marriage, she was saying, why can't you do the dishes? You're never doing the dishes. And I would say things like, well, why don't you ask me to do the dishes? And so she started asking me to do the dishes because I just wasn't aware of it. But that brought up awareness. And then she started saying, can't you do the dishes without me even asking you? Why do I even have to ask you? And for her, we had these conversations, and for her it was frustrating, and like it blew her mind that I would even have to ask this. But I don't know, maybe I'm just a guy and I'm focused on what I'm focused on, you know, and I'm not focused on the dishes, you know, but she sure is, you know, like she has all these things in her mind all the flipping time. It seems like she's aware of the laundry, she's aware of the dishes, she's aware of the kids, she's aware of work, she's aware of all this stuff. I'm aware of the football game, or I'm aware that I'm hungry, or whatever the focus is, I'm aware of that one thing. So have the conversation before the conversation. What is actually happening and what is working and not working?
And then once you kind of get to the root of that, then you can maybe start the process of what does renegotiation look like, right? And like Sean was saying, you know, we want to kind of go to this place where we're like, well, but you should understand that this is what I want, or you should understand this about me, or you should get that this needs to be done, and try not to fall into those thought process or those thought patterns, because for one, it's not super duper helpful, right? And for two, the other thing that is important to remember is that there's more than one right way to do things too.
So we have a saying amongst our counselors where we say, make the covert overt. So the thoughts inside your head, nobody's hearing those, right? And so I had to say to Angie, I can't read your mind, though she wished that I would, and she can't read my mind also. So make those thoughts words.
But even at that, right, when we would talk about these kinds of things and then Sean would adjust the way he would do things, he still wouldn't do it the way I wanted it to be done, right? So I still wasn't totally happy. Like, would he do the dishes? Yes, but would he do them when I wanted them to be done? No. Like, and I had to let those kinds of things go, right? I had to understand that there was more than one right way to do things, and it didn't have to be my way to be right. So basically you're asking the question before the question, right? Like, what's working and what's not working, and then how can we renegotiate? And then also, how can we accept the fact that our roommate or our kid or our partner may do it differently than us?
Can you be flexible?
Can you be flexible? What does that flexibility look like? And then finally, we would just encourage you also that in this season to remember that there's an aspect of service that we can all give to one another out of love that goes a long ways, right? Like, we're all in the midst of like a really stressful season right now. And so actually to consider others as more important than ourselves, right? To remember that love covers over a multitude of sins.
Serve one another.
Serving one another, right? Those kinds of things. So if your spouse is having a rough day, if your roommate's having a rough day, if your kid is having a rough day and they're on dish duty and the dishes and the sink is full of dishes, Well, you can choose to pursue that, or you can choose to maybe like serve instead and do the dishes and love them and offer them a gift that way too. So there's definitely a conversation to be had about making this a more equitable kind of setup when we're all working from home at the same time, but also keeping in mind that there's also an aspect of servitude towards one another and love that can go a long ways. So
we hope that's helpful and encouraging to y'all. We look forward to hearing what the next question is. We'll see you next week.